So you discussed levels there, and if I look at your amateur career, I mean, you hit every level. You didn't just hit it; you ticked that box. I mean, you won the New Zealand Under-18s, the New Zealand Under-21s, the New Zealand Under-23s, and then you won the New Zealand Amateur. I mean, that's kind of pretty much all you can do. Talk us through that period. So clearly, you've come out of the Eagles. You've been identified as someone perhaps with some potential, and what thrust you then into the national limelight?
Yes. I don't know. I suppose you do that, and then you play your few events around the Whangarei area, and then you start looking elsewhere in terms of, there's the New Zealand. I think it was a North Island Under-18s. Was the first time I went to a North Island Under-18. And I thought, I'll have a crack at this. And I actually played all right in that, and that was in Talpo, I think it was. I played there, and I think Matthew Lane was around at the time, and actually Paul Devonport, who I know you've probably spoken to.
I've spoken to him
Stevens,
a couple of days ago, yeah.
Craig Perks, they're all around there, but they were all a little bit older than me. And then I thought, I'll go to New Zealand I think the New Zealand Under-18 and Under-21s were at the same time. And I thought, I might as well go have a crack at that. So I went and had a crack at that. I thought I was going to do really well. I think it was in Palmerston North or New Plymouth, probably New Plymouth. And I promptly shot 94, 92. I don't know. I had an absolute disaster. It sort of didn't dent my confidence. It's gone. I was pretty disappointed at the end of that. And I thought, oh well. And then, but pretty much the same as what I do now. You have a bad performance and you think, oh, that's it. I'm giving up. I'm racking the clubs. And then wake up the next morning and it's the itch is still there. And so it's pretty much the same as amateur golf. It's just there. Just something needs scratching. You keep on going. And I then went back to the New Zealand the Under-18s, I think maybe a year later. And by then, I obviously become a bit better of a golfer and played in the Under-18, Under-21s. That was at Timaru. So I can't remember what year that was, but played in the Under-18 comps. And I won the Under-21 as well. So I actually won the Under-18s. I wasn't eligible for the Under-21s, but I shot the best score of everyone there. Paul Cadogan was another blast from the past. He was the Under-21 champ. And so I played the Under-18 that year. Then the following year, I moved into the Under-21 category and I finished third. Then the following year, I finished second. And then the final year, I think, was New Zealand Under-21s at Parapavaumu. And I won that. I think I stayed with Michael Campbell at that stage at his house. So won that. So I had a wonderful 4 years where each of the national, the main tour of the national championships, so I had a top 3 4 years in a row and 2 wins in those 4 years. So that was a magical little period, and I was starting to go to university then. Well, I was at university, so it was all a bit of a, it's so different to what is done now. And I just carried on doing a bunch of other stuff and playing a bit of golf on the side, and I was at Waikato by then and enjoying that team atmosphere. So that was a wonderful representative team.
Yeah, who were members of that? Yeah, Tatarangi was a member of that team. Yeah, who else did you have in it?
Phil Tatarangi, Steve Alker, David Smale couldn't even get in the top 5 team. Right. Paul Parlane was there, as well as we had our Colin Taylor, our John Gatleys, our Leon Taskers, Andrew McKenzie, Alan Smith. Again, such a competitive group of players that it was. That's pretty much what I thrive on.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did you play New Zealand Opens at that stage as an amateur? I know in those days you could go and try and qualify, or did you, before you turned professional, did you ever play in a New Zealand Open?
Well, no. Excuse me. No, not a lot, because I had enough time trying to fit in uni as well as a bit of golf. Well, I thought I did, but probably more socialising and trying to fit that part in as well. So it's, by modern standards, I suppose I'd be considered quite lazy, but I felt I had quite a healthy balance between golf and getting away from golf, and just allowed me a better perspective on things. So no, I never really did. I never really thought of it. I remember I played in the Eisenhower team did get a start. The team got a start in New Zealand Shell Open, and I remember I played in one of them. Might have been maybe a year before I turned pro, maybe 2 years before I turned pro. Anyway, teed it up, and I played against these guys. I thought I was pretty good, and I shot. Well, I missed the cut by a country mile, absolutely by a country mile. And I turned to my parents and said, "Well, that's it. I'm not turning pro. I don't like this professional golf. I'm not going to do that." But you know, roll on a year, and I win the New Zealand Amateur, and someone says to me, "You realise what you've won?" And I said, "Yeah, I won the New Zealand Amateur." And they said, "No, you've won a ticket to turn pro." And at that stage, I had 3 sort of prospective interviews. They weren't job interviews, but when they come to the campus and companies and they interview or do a pre-interview to see whether it's worth you coming and try and interview for a job. And I had 3 of them lined up, and I've gone, "Oh, yeah, I thought I was going to be a pro at one point, wasn't I? Well, yeah, I'll go give that a go." So that's pretty much how I fell into it. In professional golf, I won the New Zealand Amateur.
Yeah, so you won the New Zealand Amateur in 1990, but I read that your actual focus that year was on the Eisenhower that was being held down in Christchurch, which you duly made that team. You not only made that team, you finished 3rd leading amateur in that event. And to put that in context, you know, that was a field that contained Phil Mickelson and David Duval for a start that would go on to, you know, to be obviously world-class players at the highest echelon. You came 2nd to Sweden. I mean, talk us through that whole experience. It must have just been incredible to have done that, you know, not only on the world stage, but in your backyard at the same time.
Yeah, that was cool. That was great fun. Again, a wonderful team, and I mean, that year Tony Christie didn't even make it. I mean, there's another name, a wonderful player. So we had a really strong team. So I win the New Zealand Amateur, and I'm pretty much a lock for the Eisenhower. And by this stage, once someone told me at the prize giving, it was actually David Podlick, who I beat in the final. He was an Australian from Queensland, and he said to me, you won a ticket to turn pro. By that stage, I automatically sort of within 10 minutes have mapped out, right, Eisenhower's going to be my final thing I'm going to play in, and then I'm going to turn pro at the end of it. But you don't let that be known, because back in that day, back then, if you said you were going to turn pro, you could almost jeopardise your spot in the amateur side. It was sort of a real divide between amateur and professional, and if you said I'm turning pro, they would have thought, "Oh, we'll get someone else in." So I kept it pretty quiet, and I really wanted to play well in the Eisenhower. So pretty much everything was focused towards that, because I knew that was going to be my last amateur event. And thank goodness I played well in it. I actually I had a shocking practice round on the Tuesday. I thought, "Oh, where's this going?" And took a deep breath that night and reassessed things, and then came out firing on the Thursday. And yeah, well, I mean, no one would have beaten Sweden. I think I finished 3rd and individually, but the top 3 individuals were Swedish players. So, you know, when 3 out of 4 scores count, they completely flogged everyone else. So
did your pathway during that event, did you ever come across Mickelson and Duval? Did you guys play? Was it round robin?
No, we never actually got paired with America. I think they started slowly, because they had a couple. Alan Doyle was the other member, who was a great amateur player. Eventually played senior golf on the PGA Tour, and I can picture him. Anyway, so they started slowly, and it was pretty much us and Sweden the whole way through, even though Sweden were miles ahead, and sort of America were they were running 3rd the whole way. So we generally got paired with Sweden a lot. So never really got to play with them. I actually ended up playing a lot with David's father when I went over to the US tour and met David through through his father, Bobby. And so we played a lot of golf in Ponte Vedra Beach, and met David there, and enjoyed his company a lot. And I think he does quite a good job on TV. But anyway, so we never really got to play with him much. And once the Eisenhower was over, I basically said the next day I'm turning pro.
So it was literally as immediate as that, was it?
Pretty much. I've been pretty much looking forward to it, and I don't know, maybe I was scared that I had to go get a job or something. I'll just carry on playing this golf. And to be honest, really, I thought, well, I'm just going to play golf. I'll play it for 2 or 3 years, because the main reason behind it was that if I got myself a job, stayed amateur, I might miss a couple trials here and there, and then I'd be kicked out before I thought I was done with the game. There'd be some young guy coming up, oh, he's played all the trials, he's only half a shot behind you. Sorry, that's the rule. So I want to take matters into my own hands, and decided to turn pro. And funnily enough, though, so I decided to turn pro. I played a couple pro-ams, I think, in Rotorua area. And then the first pro event I was going to play was in New Zealand Shell Open. So I finished 3rd individual in the Eisenhower. I'm the reigning New Zealand Amateur champion, and I had to go pre-qualify. I couldn't. They wouldn't give me a spot. So there I was, thrust into the reality of professional golf. 1 minute you're at the top, and then the next minute, which is completely different now. If a person with that credentials, they'd probably say yes, you can have a start. But there I was, Monday morning, 7:30, teeing it up, I think at Mungakiki Golf Club, with everyone else trying to get into the tournament, which I got in and made the cut, but that was about the only cut I made for the next 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, so I was going to say, what were those early years of turning professional like? You were probably playing on the Australasian tour, just solely at that point, and playing some pro-ams. I mean, what was it like back in the day? What was the pathway like?
Yeah, it was. That was pretty much it. The first year I just played the Australasian tour, some pro-ams. I didn't play the Australasian tour very well at all, so I only made 1 cut. I started to pre-qualify for a few things. So back then it used to be you go to the tour school, and it wasn't an all-exempt tour like it is now. So you have a category, and they go down the categories, and if they go far enough, you get an event. Basically what happened there is you had your top 60 players who were exempt from the year before, and then there was another 50 spots available for sponsors, invites and whatever, and then also for pre-qualifiers. So you basically had to pre-qualify every week, unless you finished top 10. Oh no, back then you had to pre-qualify every week unless you made the cut. If you made the cut, you didn't have to pre-qualify the next week. So I missed a lot of cuts, ended up doing a lot of pre-qualifyings and just trying to make money somehow to keep myself afloat doing it. But I enjoyed every minute of it. Absolutely loved every minute of it, even though I hated every minute of it as well. It's a weird thing. I think we are one step away from a padded cell sometimes, us professional sportsmen or sportswomen. It's a crazy world we live in. Then I had to go back to the tour school again and got my card again. And now I understood the system a bit more. I made a lot more cuts and started making some money. And then started going to places like Malaysia. Didn't play a lot. I never played the Asian tour, but up into Malaysia, the islands tours, had a lot of fun doing that. And, for the first 2-3 years, it was probably a lot more fun. Results didn't seem like they were important, but I think at that age, you're quite, you've got your whole lifetime here. There's no rush, just chill, and you're quite quick to get over things and move on and just enjoy what you were doing, which is going to some wonderful spots in the islands and the Pacific, and up to Malaysia, which is a different lifestyle. And if you got hot water that night, that was fantastic. If you didn't, it didn't matter. And if you had a bed, that was even better. And they were some crazy times, but it was all part of it.